There's a great XKCD strip that explains this exactly. I think it begins with something like there's 15 standards, and we need to solve this problem, but none of the standards fit. You know what? We'll create one new standard to rule them all. We'll have one overarching standard that fits all the other standards inside of it, and then the next panel. Now we have 16 standards.
Welcome to the Forward Slash, where we lean into the future of IT by inviting fellow thought leaders, innovators, and problem solvers to slash through its complexity. Today, we have with us Dave Shanley, who also goes by quobix. Did I pronounce that right, Dave?
That is correct. Yes, quobix.
Quobix. He's a hacker, product thinker, software architect, inventor, and technical leader with nearly 3 decades of experience designing and building software across a wide range of industries. He specializes in what he calls experience engineering, creating technology that people interact with directly. By day, he's a distinguished engineer at Splunk. By night, well, he's also a failed musician. Those are his words, not ours. The reason we wanted to have you on, you have an interesting kind of take on the kind of an AI twist on something that's been around for a little bit. We wanted to talk about that OpenAPI. There's a little bit of a connection there, so I thought that sounded very interesting. But I gotta get into this this failed musician thing. My morbid curiosity when I saw that on your bio, I'm like, okay, how bad could it be? You know what I mean? Like, how bad could this really be? So I clicked on it. I went to your Spotify, and I'm expecting Step Brothers, Prestige Worldwide, kind of, you're wrecking your dad's boat into the shore kind of a thing. But I was surprised. It was pretty awesome. I'm going to have to listen to this. How is this failed? How are you a failed musician? That's good stuff, man.
Thank you. I really appreciate that. I always wanted to be a musician. I always wanted to be a rock star, 99% of other young children out there, and tried it. And we, had some progress. When I was maybe 15 years ago, 20 years ago now, I don't know, it's a long time ago, long time ago. But when I was in England originally, we actually had a bit of a following. We had a couple of record deals. We actually had a music video on MTV2, if
Nice.
you can believe that. And we did some tours. Actually, we did a tour with My Chemical Romance, right, kind of just before they blew up. And it was a good time. But, we never quite cracked it, never cracked the nut, never quite made it. And it all fizzled out. And by that point, it was just like, well, there was no money anyway. The only money we ever made was for recording. So I kind of fell back to my second passion in life, which is software engineering, which is always there. I was always doing it. I just kind of doubled down on that and gave up the life of trying to be a professional musician, so.
Oh, man. I enjoyed it. I was listening. It was great.
Oh, thank you.
So,
I wasn't expecting that, but it would have been my choice in life if I could have been a musician, would have been. But I see a lot of similarities in coding and engineering and software with music and art. For me, it is a form of art. It's not just, sure, it's algorithms,
right,
but it's algorithms that combine together that can create something beautiful and unique.
Absolutely. No, I love it. So, well, first I want to talk to Dave. You have this alter ego, but I want to talk to Dave because you got a kind of a cool gig at Splunk and Cisco. Tell us a little bit about what do you do there? This distinguished engineer sounds pretty cool.
Yeah, thank you. So, my day job is I'm a distinguished engineer for Splunk, but now we're owned by Cisco. So we were acquired by Cisco just over a year ago. And nothing's really changed. In fact, in the sense of what I'm doing, is just a part of a much bigger company now. But, the nuts and bolts of it is vision, leadership. I work in security, so that in Splunk, there's the Splunk platform. I'm not sure if you know much about Splunk, but it's a huge big log aggregator, feeding any kind of unstructured data, and it gives you a way to search, query, and build applications on top of that data. Splunk Securities, which is what I'm one of the distinguished engineers for, is all of the premium security products that sit on top of Splunk. So enterprise security being our cash cow, which is the main product which a lot of businesses use. In fact, most businesses that use Splunk use it for security and use one of our security products. And my role basically is to set the vision of how we're going to get from where we are today to where we want to be, and how all the problems it's going to solve and why we need need to do that. So it's really kind of setting that grand vision and then selling that vision not only to the engineers, but the product managers, the UX team, the technical product managers, the executives. The whole organization needs to be brought along on that journey. But anyway, that's kind of what I do on my day to day is leadership, thought leadership, vision leadership, technical leadership, strategy, and taking us on that long journey of solving the big problems.
That's cool. As technology, leaders, and as we kind of grow up in the industry, it's hard to take that back seat and realize that we're there to mentor and let others shine. At a certain point, you need to take a step back away from getting you're not like, move, get out of my way, let me show you what, stop doing that. Like, you don't need to be the smartest person in the room. The other people are really smart too. So yeah,
it's a really hard skill to learn. And part of kind of growing into that role is the ability to let go of the reins and say, what would you do? How are you going to do it? How are you going to make it better? How would you design it? And then supporting them and helping mentor them through that versus saying, oh, you should do it this way. You should do it that way. Now that's really, really hard to let go of that desire. I was mentored once by an engineer, senior engineer at VMware, and he gave me the question. It was, how can you take these 2 hands and turn them into 100 pairs of hands? That's your goal. Not to do the work of 100 people, but to have 100 people do your work for you in a way that they feel like they own it and they enjoy it and they want to do it. To do that, to encourage people to do it, that is really, really hard. It's a really, really hard skill to learn. That's cool. So that's basically that's what I do on the 9 to 5.
So all of you senior engineers out there, if you want to learn how you get to be a better and better engineer in this industry, you need that mindset. I love it. I love that. That's awesome. So enough talking to this Dave Shanley guy. Okay, we've got an alter ego, quobix. Now, I want to talk to quobix. Is he available right now? Is he around?
Absolutely. I've got my cowboy hat on.
Your cowboy hat. I was wondering, I don't know that I've known anyone that has an alter ego. Like, you see, like Superman, it seems like it's real easy to just change between. He just parts his hair a different way, puts on some glasses, and nobody knows. Do you find that to be the case for you? Is it easy to just go back and forth, or what do you, how's your experience there?
That's a great question. And I think that if you kind of roll it back a little bit further and you think about like people who have alter egos, so like Superman or Spider-Man, Batman, and they're all this person that they have to put on a mask to become their alter ego. But Superman's different. And this is actually a quote from Kill Bill, I believe, Volume 2. But Superman is different because he is Superman. The cape, the red boots, the blue outfit, that's his. Those are his clothes. He has to become Clark Kent to hide who he is. And I'm a little bit like that. Not that I'm Superman, nothing like him, but I am in the sense that I always feel like quobix versus Dave Shanley. Dave Shanley is who I become to operate in the world. But, if I had unlimited money, time and resources, I'd never take my cowboy hat off. I'd be hacking code all day long and making music, somehow trying to blend them together, which is really hard to do well. But yeah, that's how I would operate. So I kind of see myself as quobix all the time. And I have to become Dave Shanley to make money and have a career.
All right, so you're an enigma. I said I have more curiosity. Okay, so you said we talked about you live in Virginia. Mm-hmm. You don't sound like you live in Virginia. You mentioned earlier you're from England. But you play music that sounds to me like Linkin Park and Green Day. And then you mentioned cowboy hat. There's a whole lot of worlds here that are combined that don't make any sense. You know what I mean? And explain all of this connection. How did the cowboy hat come to be?
So I've always had an affinity for anything Western.
Nice.
I love the idea of the cowboy and what the cowboy stood for. Protecting the herd, driving it home, being out there on the front lines. Sole survivor. And if something went wrong out there on a drive, you are on your own, and you still had to make sure that you got the job done. Everything about that just rings to me. And plus, the fashion is awesome. And it's just uniquely American. I know it's influenced very heavily influenced by Spanish and Mexican culture, but there's something about the cowboy in itself is uniquely American. Whether or not it's kind of composed of different cultures over the years. it's something just always sung to me. So I've always worn a cowboy buckle, like a big belt buckle. You know, even when I was in England, I come over here, and the only place I could find it was like some like Hot Topic, and I'd find some kind of nonsense, cheap band, piece of crap, and take it home. When I went back to the UK, obviously that was a very, very long time ago. But it just the whole culture of it just sings to me, both the vision and all of that stuff. So that's why I kind of based all of that. I wear cowboy hats casually. I can't wear them when I'm doing like recording and stuff because I can't put my headphones over them. But normally, if you see me out in public, I'll be wearing. If I do talks, I'm always wearing a cowboy hat.
I love it. That's fantastic. Quite a renaissance, man. All right, so Quobix and I are talking now, and so you are in like. There's something that's been around for a while. OpenAPI, we kind of talked about that, and JSON schema specifically. Tell us a little bit about these technologies for those who are uninitiated, that are not familiar with what even is this OpenAPI thing, and why does JSON schema have anything to do with this?
Yeah, it's a great question. So OpenAPI is the standard, or has become the adopted standard of how we define RESTful APIs out there on the internet. There's another couple of standards that existed. For example, there was one called RAML that was built by a company called MuleSoft. Mm-hmm. So a few of them kind of emerged, a little bit like VHS and Betamax. And OpenAPI 1, it wasn't always called OpenAPI. It started out as something called Swagger, which was built by a company called SmartBear. Which still exists as a commercial product, but it's its own thing. It's its own standard, and SmartBear donated the as it was in time, that version of the standard to, I believe it was the Linux Foundation. It is the Linux Foundation. Anyway, they donated it as an open standard and said, here you go. And then what happened is that became OpenAPI, and then it started moving forward, and there was a bunch of changes made. Swagger actually won the war, the API spec wars, not because it was the best, but because the community was the largest. It had the widest adoption, just because it was easier for people to build tooling with, and there was just more people using it, and it just won. That's OpenAPI as that standard. And JSON schema is the definition of how you define models within requests and responses and parameters and headers and things like that. And that is another standard. Now the difference is that Swagger has like a form of JSON schema support. It's like its own limited. It's not really JSON schema. It's kind of version of it. Uses the same namespaces and things like that. But JSON schema is actually an open standard, and OpenAPI 3.1 adopted JSON schema as a standard, which means you can now use any tooling that supports JSON schema, which is a lot of it. There's a lot of great tools out there that do support JSON schema. You can now use them with OpenAPI because they can actually read, or should be able to read those schemas. And that creates a lot of problems, because most tools are founded on the hacked version of the model versus the actual implementation. So I'm kind of building tooling specifically in Go. I started about 3 years ago because I was building a lot of this tooling internally inside VMware that we were deploying and running, and people loved it. Developers loved the tooling. It's still operating today in places, I believe, but we couldn't open source it for different reasons. Not going to go into them, but that's why I started rebuilding all this stuff outside of the company, so it was available for everyone who had these problems to start using it. And that problem, there's multiple companies now doing exactly what I thought they would be doing with the library and the tooling, to solve these open API problems. So that's why I kind of started doing this. The tooling was rubbish, the ecosystem was bad, and there was companies that were doing it internally but keeping it all for themselves. So I thought, okay, let's break the cycle.
Gotcha. So OpenAPI is a way for us to kind of document and share this is what this API does, and here's how you talk to it, how you interact.
Exactly.
Kind of the gist of it. Yeah. Okay.
Yeah. It's all the endpoints and all the inputs, the parameters, and how you would, make a request to it, the kind of responses you're going to get back out of it, with the data shape. So the properties and values and what types they're going to be, whether they're numbers or strings and things like that. Nice. So it gives you this really, really strongly defined contract that what goes in, exactly what should be coming out, which means you should be able to then feed that spec, that contract, the OpenAPI spec, into any different type of tooling, and it will be able to spit out different artifacts from that spec. So, for example, documentation. and you want to be able to document the API. So you just, fill out the spec and complete it, fully, and you've got great docs automatically. The same thing with SDKs. You can auto generate code. So your clients will be automatically, all the code you would need to be able to call your API will be generated in JavaScript or Perl or Python or PHP or Java, or whatever it is that you're out there using. You'd have a code generator for it. And this is what we call like an API first design, where you design the API through OpenAPI, and then everything else kind of falls, from that center core. So client generation, code generation, test generation, server generation, backend generation, all that stuff comes from the spec. So having a single source of truth for your API.
Nice. So when you have all these, a lot of the organizations are facing, we're becoming very API first, as you were saying, design first or API first. And when you're inside these big enterprises, you kind of get lost in this sea of all these open API documents. How are you finding, managing this, bringing everything together and making people aware of this sort of thing? What are people doing with that?
Yeah, this is a great question. So I think there's a few states of maturity that businesses have in this journey. Like you get, let's say an enterprise business is 15 years old or so. They're going to have lots of different products, some acquisitions, some homegrown. Open API specs are going to be scattered, like you said. Some of them are going to be generated from code. Some of them are going to be slapped together. Some of them are going to be thoughtful. First of all, before trying to build like a directory of all the specs, is you've got to get everyone using specs. So whilst you might have a selection of specs that are in different states, you've also got a bunch of teams that aren't even thinking about this, that haven't even done any work on OpenAPI or any kind of API standard, and they don't have any tooling around it. So they're kind of starting from scratch. So there's like awareness, is how do you get everyone to see? So the first thing you've got to do is pull everything in that you can find and suck it all into some form of, your own kind of directory to begin with. And there's actually products out there, like Postman have a platform that does this, that allows you to do this kind of spec centralization, but be able to pull it in and do an analysis and figure out where are we in our journey, is how well are these specs put together. If you find that most of those specs go in pretty well, they render out relatively well in documentation, and you can get, a reasonable kind of quality score out of them. That's okay. We're in a good position. Now we need a tool that's going to give us like a central directory where we can allow everyone to explore, search, try them out. But what I'm finding is most enterprise businesses are upside down and inside out when it comes to OpenAPI specifically, and having specs. There's parts of the business that are really clean because they're building cloud native. They need OpenAPI. For example, they're using some form of Kubernetes API server. They need to feed something in to be able to expose routes and endpoints. So they're really doing well. We could do a lot better, but at least they're made that part of their test. And there's the legacy stuff, which I see every day in my day job, which just is playing catch up, all the time. And new things might get built with a spec, but most of the stuff is completely undocumented and unspecified. So that level of maturity is like we're just getting started. We're just trying to things out. Having us like that kind of a platform solution is just a little bit too early for businesses in that state. So really what you got in that point is it's about getting the team's hygiene. Like it's a cultural thing. Before you even get to worrying about, having a single place all the specs go, it's how do we get teams caring about this, worrying about this, implementing this and making it part of their build. You've got to have all of those how-tos. How do you stitch this tooling together? How do you use this type of tooling? What happens when you do this? And I think that's actually the hardest part, which I actually spend a lot of time during the day doing, is educating and then showcasing and then getting examples of this is how we do it properly. And then you start to see the spark go off and then teams start making use of it. So yeah, it's mature businesses use a platform or build your own. It's really hard though. Wouldn't recommend it. Wouldn't recommend it. Really, really hard. So yeah, just do, on this one, buy. But before then, it is a case of actually getting tooling. So stitching together open source tooling to be able to showcase, we've got quality evaluation, we've got change detection in here, we've got some form of governance going on. We can see what's going on. getting to that point is really hard. Once you're at that point, it's just rinse and repeat until you're ready for a platform.
All right. So do you find that once you get to this level of maturity of the OpenAPI specs being clean and they're practicing good hygiene and all of that, where you can do kind of that low code, no code kind of a thing and actually start weaving things together without, much engineering effort?
Yeah, I mean, it's a bit of a utopia because I have yet to see an organization get to that level of maturity, but that is where it should be. So you have the capability for anyone to be able to explore APIs and discover them, use them, and build automation against them. That is where it should be, right? And adding a new API is a design process because all the code is automatically generated for SDKs and clients, and all the code is automatically generated for the backend, which means you're not checking any of this code in. You design the spec. The spec is then actually used to generate the code and then go into the directories. So, I mean, that's really where we want to get to, where non-technical folks can explore, understand, automate, and create their own workflows and publish those workflows. So then you've got the ability to do kind of high level education for, like, this is how you do this thing. Here is my workflow, and you can capture that and then publish it out, and then anyone else can pick that up, whether it's a customer or it's another engineer.
So we talked about there's a bit of an AI play here. There's a trend in the industry, a big push for agentic AI, right? This does play into that some. If you can, present these OpenAPI specs such that they're easy to weave together by a human being, presumably an AI agent could do the same. Kind of, is that where you're headed with that?
Yeah, I mean, so there's a big boom in MCP as a new concept out there in the market right now, and there's other concepts like A2A. So MCP stands for Model Context Protocol, and A2A is Agent to Agent Protocol without the P. Or it's got a P on the end. I'm not sure. Anyway, personally, I believe that an OpenAPI spec is all that you need, really, to be able to understand the capabilities of an API. But what we've created, or what the market has created, is this layer over the top where it's kind of put this RPC style communication layer. So it's basically JSON schema over Post, which is JSON RPC. So it's like an ultra lightweight version of REST. There's no real resources or anything like that. There's no real verbs or anything. It's just post a payload with a schema with context of the conversation, and we're calling it a protocol. So there's a lot of hype kind of around that at the moment, really, because that's all it is. It's a very old fashioned. It's a step backwards, really, in terms of how you think about APIs and the capabilities of APIs. Backwards from REST, anyway. Mm-hmm. So I think we're going to see a lot more rise for the need of OpenAPI, or at least any kind of API you're interacting with, whether it's GraphQL or gRPC or Protobuf. I think we're going to see a lot more demand for it because AIs are going to want to automate a lot of this stuff. MCP is abstracting that, but MCP still needs to be able to understand how to talk to those underlying services. And how's it going to need to do that? Well, it needs an API contract or some form of an API contract. Not all APIs are going to be HTTP based, obviously. But it's not a replacement. There's been a lot of kind of media coverage about MCP being the new standard for how we do APIs, and I'm like, no, I don't know. I think that's clickbait beyond anything else. It's doing nothing new or nothing different, and I also am a little concerned that because it's backed by a commercial entity. They've got their own interests at heart. So does every other entity that's playing in AI right now, which is everyone. So everyone wants to be the new protocol thing. So we've already seen A2A from Google. We've got MCP from Anthropic. I'm pretty sure we're about to see a flood more. Maybe not. Maybe it stops here. Maybe this is like, this is it. We've solved it. But there's a lot of problems with MCP, security being one of them. Oh, yeah. Massive problem. I'm sure there'll be solutions coming up for that, but then we'll start to see deviations of MCP, for different flavors of MCP, and then we will be right back to where we are again, where we were with the spec wars,
Yep. Absolutely.
RAML versus Swagger all over again. But now we've got this added layer. So I'm not betting on any of them, to be honest. I'm just standing back and waiting for the hype to fall, because I like working on the plateau of productivity, the slope of enlightenment and the plateau of productivity. Mm-hmm. That's where I operate. That's the tools that I build operate. When you need something that's going to work, come see me. When I stay with the hype, you need to go over there, because I can't help you.
I love that us technologists and just as an industry, we're so funny. Like, as you said, OpenAPI has been around for a bit. We've had a great way of explaining, here's what this API does, here's how you talk to it. And then we came up with this, hey, what if we do this new agentic AI thing? And we're going to hand these agents tools. But man, we need to describe these tools and how do you talk to them? Let's come up with something brand new. Let's just start. We obviously, there's nothing available, so we have to just create this from scratch. It's crazy that we do this to ourselves over and over again.
There's a great XKCD strip that explains this exactly. I think it begins with something like there's 15 standards, and we need to solve this problem, but none of the standards fit. You know what? We'll create one new standard to rule them all. We'll have one overarching standard that fits all the other standards inside of it, and then the next plan is now we have 16 standards.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
Yeah, exactly right. Yeah.
Exactly what we do.
Yeah.
It'd be great if we could leverage these existing technologies, and it's kind of cool this notion of agentic, where you ask them these fancy models to plan out, hey, I have to solve this complex problem that could involve multiple steps, and you say, okay, here are all the tools at your disposal, and the engine just decides, okay, in order to solve this problem, I first need to do A. That's a tool for that. I'm going to go talk to that and all that. So I think it absolutely naturally lends itself. So hopefully we'll see a little more, like you're saying, a little more standardization and people settling on things that are reasonable and not jockeying for control so much as let's just be sane about it for once.
Yeah. I don't know where it's going to land. I feel like every day there's a new spike on the AI hype peak. So it starts again, like there's a new trend. There's another trend. There's a new thing happening now. Multi-agentic now. And there's another one. It's like most people still haven't even added the word agentic to their marketing material. Now they're going to go back and start adding, modifications to that. That's how fast things are moving. Which it just lends to, from my experience, and as you've experienced as well in the past, you just stand back and wait for the balls to land on the floor, because at some point they're all going to come down. They can't keep going up and up and up. We are going to have some form of bill come due, and then we'll figure out how to make use of all of this stuff properly.
All right. So I wanted to maybe dig into you have this product that you're working on that I wanted to hear a lot more about. So tell me about your product that you've been working on, your passion project, so to speak.
Yeah, great. Thank you. So I have a company. The company is called Princess Beef Heavy Industries, and the acronym is PB33F. And for the last few years, what I've been doing is building the pieces that I need to build the product. I need all these bits and pieces, and they're all really useful bits and pieces on their own. They're individual units of value, like they're power tools, if you will. So I've been releasing them as open source. Whilst, the goal is I need these things to build what I want. The things that I need aren't out there in the form that I need, so I'll build them and give them away. Give these pieces away for everyone else to be able to go and use. And there's different areas of value. There's a library that's a complete parser and model and diff engine for OpenAPI specs. Huge enterprise grade ones. I'm talking, hundreds of thousands and thousands and thousands of schemes, hundreds of thousands of schemas, massive, across many, many files, just gigantic specifications. And then there's another tool called Vacuum, which is a linter. And what it allows you to do is it's actually inspired by another open source tool called Spectral. And Spectral will allow you to do, it's got a rules engine. There's core functions that you can put in and say that for this path, check if this thing exists or it doesn't exist, or if you've used the right word or uppercase or lowercase. So it allows you to define your own rules or use the built-in rules to check quality. It's like, have you done this? Have you not done this? Is this a good high quality spec? Is it valid? Have you violated the schema, etc.? And there's another tool called Wiretap, and Wiretap is like a compliance engine. So it operates as a proxy. So you would send all your client traffic, your UI traffic, or your CLI traffic through it to your service. And what it's going to do is look at all the requests and responses and align them with the OpenAPI contract and tell you how compliant your back end or your front end is with that contract. Now, you shouldn't need this tool. It shouldn't need to exist if you've done it API first. But lo and behold, most people haven't. So that's why it exists. Yeah, people use it. They depend heavily on it. It gets a lot of use. So yeah, those three products are the open source. They're libraries, tools, binaries. They get a lot of uses. A few million downloads now.
Nice.
There's a couple of thousand stars across the repos in GitHub. But again, those are things that I need. They're not like, here's open source. Well, thank you. There's my gift to the universe. Sure, it's free, but I need it. Like, right. I use it. So everything that I build is a feature that I require. Anyway, they're all built with a purpose to create this end goal, this universal all-in-one. So you don't have a tool for quality. You don't have a tool for change detection. You don't have a tool for compliance. You have a tool that does all of it. And that's what the Doctor is. So that's the product that I'm building. It's called the OpenAPI Doctor, but it's themed after, it's a sci-fi show from the UK called Doctor Who. You may have heard of it. You may not have heard of it. Everything about it is themed around it. So it's just my own kind of association with it. For example, all the Git commits in the repo, all the commits are based off of Doctor Who quotes. So anyway, that's the whole point is like you can, It's an all-in-one for OpenAPI. It's a design studio. So you can design, every change you make is tracked. You can see exactly what changed in these unique ways that are completely unavailable anywhere else. Like there's graphs of, diffs that just don't exist in any other tool. You can see the model as a graph. You can see all the references and the relationships between schemas. You can do your quality control. There's vacuum rules built into the Doctor because it's powered by that vacuum. There's change detection. I haven't built Wiretap in yet, so the compliance part isn't available. But it's the idea that not only can you have this as a SaaS service, so it runs as an API, you can build your own products on top of it, or you can run it as part of your CI/CD, or you can run it on-prem. It's designed to actually run as an on-prem product, so you want to keep control of your own data, no problem. Or you want to run it as a desktop app. You want to run it as part of your dev, you don't need Docker. You just run the binary and a desktop UI will pop up. And you've got everything you need. So it'll fit into any form factor, run in a Docker container, run as a SaaS service, run on-prem as a service, run as a desktop application, or run as a CLI tool. But you've got everything you need in one place. That's the goal. It's an all-in-one suite, everything you need, a complete and end-to-end solution for the upstream of OpenAPI, which is contract validation, design, quality, and compliance.
So the names of all the tools, I kind of get those. I can see where you got those. The vacuum and whatnot. Doctor, all these things make sense. Okay, you got to tell me about Princess Beef. I like, where did this come from? That's kind of out of left field here again. This is another cowboy hat in Virginia deal. What's going on here?
Well, I was thinking about, what I need to create some form of an entity because there's sponsorship on the GitHub repos. A few companies reached out to me saying, we want to sponsor you. I'm like, I don't have a bank account for business. It's like, So I set up an LLC just so I could have that going. And I was thinking, well, what do I call it? I'm not going to call all this stuff. So, I was thinking about different, boring names, like, verbs and the kind of stuff that you see most startups pick, something that's inoffensive and corporate friendly, but sounds fizzy. Like, no, this is boring, it's all boring. So my daughter was 2 at the time. And she had a TV show that she watched. It's called Blaze and the Monster Machines. It's an animated show about monster trucks. Nice. And, she would say, I want to watch Princess Beef. And we're like, what? what show is Princess Beef? And she'd point at Blaze and the Monster Machine and say, Princess Beef. I'm like, there's no mentions of princesses or beef or Princess Beef anywhere in the show. That's just what my 2-year-old called it. So I thought, well, isn't that a great name for a band?
That is a great band name.
Isn't that? Because she used to play these like toy drums, and she called them the Honey Drums. And I thought, Princess Beef and the Honey Drums. That is a name for a band.
That is a band name.
That's a great name for a band. But as I said, my music days, my professional music days are long behind me. So I can't use it for a band. What else am I going to use it for? Well, why not call the company Princess Beef?
I love it.
And the heavy industries actually comes from back in the 90s. There was a hacker think tank called Loft Heavy Industries, and they created a bunch of tools like Loft Crack for Windows NT. Anyway, they were like a real aspirational hacker group. They were kind of disbanded in 2000, so only around for a very short time. But I thought, what a great, heavy industries, for software, because it's the antithesis of heavy industries, right? There's no heavy machinery. There's nothing. It doesn't exist. You turn the power off, it's gone. So I was like, what? I love it. I want to bring back hacker roots, because it's all about hacker design. Like everything's cyberpunk and neon pink and blue, and it looks like a terminal. So it's all kind of in that atmosphere. Why not bring it back and pay homage to Loft?
All right, so this has been fantastic. We have a couple of segments that we do with every guest. One of them, the first one we're going to do, is what we call Ship It or Skip It.
Ship or skip. Everybody, we got to tell us if you ship or skip.
So we have a few topics, so I'll just kind of ask you kind of and Ship It or Skip It. That's basically like, hot or not kind of a thing, right?
Okay.
So I'll come up with some topic ideas, and we'll just kind of do we ship that? That's good stuff, or skip it? No, it's not good. How about vibe coding? There's a lot of stuff going on around vibe coding these days. What do you think about vibe coding?
Skip it. Throw it in the trash and burn it. Definitely. Vibe coding, it's great if you're an experienced engineer and you know what you're doing and you know how things work and you want to be able to sketch. It's like taking, like Procreate being on the iPad. It's a supercharger for sketching if you're an artist. Mm-hmm. If you're an amateur, you'll end up making things look like, a crayon picture like a 5-year-old would, because you don't understand the tool. And that's really what I see, vibe coding. AI is a power tool for people who understand that particular domain, and they can enhance their output in that domain. But if you don't know what you're doing and you start vibe coding, and there was an explosion a month or two ago where a couple of influencers were building like games and like flying games and stuff like that. And, it's a pile of junk. It's a massive blob of garbage that requires a community to debug. And whilst it's fun, this is good for a sketch or a POC or to get something off the ground, like trusting it as a product or asking people to pay money for it is danger, because like anyone working software for a long time, is the chaos isn't really the upfront build. It's easy to build something new, but maintaining something over the long term and building something to be maintainable with minimal amount of manpower, that's hard. Mm-hmm. And you're not going to get that from vibe coding at all. You're going to go the opposite way. So it's not so much the upfront value, it's what happens next. That's the part that, I'm done now, I'll move on to the next cool thing. And that thing that people are now paying for, and all the complaint, and it ends up, collapsing. That's the result of vibe coding. So skip it.
I agree with you. I do like the nuanced answer of like, for folks who do have some experience, it can be a helpful power tool. It can be a way to accelerate your workflows. But being a consultant, right, in the consulting business, you see these fads come and go, right? But there's then you have to pay the piper eventually, right? At some point, it becomes the point where, oh my goodness, we don't have any idea how to maintain this thing, and that's where. I made a career out of that. So I've done a lot of cleanups, so I'm okay with it. It's fine. Anyway, all right. Another one we kind of touched on a little bit as we were talking, but like model context protocol, A2A, like this whole notion of like we're trying to land on some standards. What do you think about this MCP A2A thing? Are you ship it, skip it? What do you think?
Oh, this is a hard one. I'm kind of on the fence because the industry has picked this and is moving with it, and that's where the action is.
Mm-hmm.
And it's moving, and there's people using it, and there's all kinds of new implementations coming out of it. But it's evolving so rapidly that I feel like adopting anything or running headfirst into anything like that right now would be a costly mistake in the long run. But skipping it completely, I think it's a bad idea because this is something that is emerging. It is what people are talking about. Whether or not it's going to become the new norm, it's the primordial soup of where this new idea is coming from. So I'd pay attention. I'd pay attention. I wouldn't completely skip it, but I wouldn't dive in. I don't know if that's a great answer, but it's kind of on the fence on this one. Look at it, definitely understand it, but don't run at it like it's Adobe Flash. Don't do that.
That's a fantastic answer, and I'm with you. I think this, for me, I don't know. I have this uncanny ability. I'm kind of patting myself on the back here. It's very self-serving, but I feel like I have this uncanny ability of like, it was almost like an instinctual, intuitive sense of when there's just too much complexity right now. And my spidey sense is like tingling right now. Like it's this world that I don't think we've quite landed on where we're going to eventually kind of settle. I think we're at a local minima or local maxima, so to speak, right? I don't think we've kind of gotten to the point where we're like, we've made that breakthrough that'll get us to that global maxima yet. But yeah, I think there's a breakthrough that needs to happen still. My spidey sense is like, no, don't go heavy investing in this stuff quite yet. So I'm with you. I agree with you on that. It's tough to sift through sifting through that nonsense. There's a lot of noise to signal ratio right now is a little too high.
Every company has big AI layer in it now. In every diagram, in every piece of marketing is a big AI box, AI thing. There's AI everywhere. And you ask them, how are you actually using it? Oh, well, we've got a chat bot and we're kind of wrapped OpenAI. So okay, great, okay.
It used to be if you put AI in your product, it was the joke was, oh, you got a couple if statements in there, and that's calling that AI. It's a little more advanced than that now because chatbots are so easy. But yeah, I'm with you. It's watered down a little bit right now. You can't really see the true innovation in AI right now because everybody's just like, no, we're doing AI. All right. This was an interesting one. I'd love to hear your take on it. Like the industry right now, it's funny. We have this, I don't know, I call it like the Kardashian effect, right? Everybody wants to be an influencer, right? They want to get out there and influence other people. What's your take on that? How do you feel about how we are as an industry now? And I mean, it's the world, but I mean, our industry in particular is getting hit with this.
I love this question. There is a number of, I mean, you see them like doing tutorials, creating their own courses, trying to get likes and hits, on social media for anything to do with coding or related to coding, because there's a couple of really good influencers out there that are doing great work. People like the Primagen, but very experienced guy, with a lot of value to add, has done really great training courses, builds really interesting things. Content is entertaining, but the reason why he's got all that credibility is because he actually knows what he's talking about. Like not at the high level, but the right down to the low level, super low level, the core the first principles, core fundamentals of computer science. He understands it and is able to explain it in a way that is helpful. That's something to aspire to. But that takes 15, 20 years of experience. And the problem is that, from what I see as young guys, wanting to do that. Like, I want to be a streamer. I want to be on Twitch, and I want to be coding, and I want to be giving advice, but I don't quite know what to give because I don't know what I'm doing yet. But I still want to, it's a little bit like the people that they want to take up skiing, so they go out and buy the most expensive skis and all the gear, and they got the Instagram pictures with the stuff on, and but they can't ski. But they got all the stuff. They look like they can, they give the impression that they can, but they can't actually do it yet. It's like wanting to skip the line on experience. I want the credibility, but I don't want to have to, do the hard work to get there. And I think that's really the key, is that you can't short circuit it. you can't study your way into this, in a shortened amount of time. It's experience takes time. It's the muscle memory, the neural pathways in your head that need to be formed from repetitive work, from trial and failure, learning. You can't do it. And I think that's what I see with a lot of younger people trying to break into technology, but I don't think kind of diving into the Kardashian effect and trying to become like, some superstar streamer. The people that are making money for it and are famous are because they're experienced and they got something to add. They've got real experience to share, and they're turning it into a format that is enjoyable and consumable because they know how to do that too. Right? These are two skills that you've got to learn through experience and by presenting and storytelling and learning how to, put a storyline together and be able to tell it in an interesting way and provide value. So, the tech influencers, don't do it until you you've actually got experience. Like you really know what you're talking about. Not just I did a course and I'm now trying to prove that I understand what I learned by teaching. Putting yourself into a situation as like a mentor at that point is the mistake.
Yeah, there was a Twitter. Well, that's not Twitter, X conversation I saw. Somebody was asking, what do you call those people? You brought it up of like, the people who they want to be a skier and they go out and buy all the fancy equipment and they buy all those things and immediately that's what they buy. And they're like, what's the word for that? We need a word for that. And there's people that are, my age that remember back in the day, like the skaters, they're like, we've had that word forever. It's called poser. Right? You don't need to invent a new word. We've got a word for that. It's called a poser.
That's a great word. That's a great word to describe. We need to revive that because it describes it perfectly, doesn't it? Posers, yeah.
It does. So you're skip it, kind of. Yeah. Skip it until you have experience.
Grind, like work. Do the work. And then, when you've got the credibility to be able to build the kind of things that you're inspired by, because genuinely build them, because you know how to build them, because you've gained the experience and the skills. You've grown that skill set. Then teach others. Then be a role model. But don't skip the line because you've got nothing to offer yet. You just don't know enough.
Yeah, I'm with you. I'm gonna skip it as well. I say, it's uncanny whenever we human beings try to take shortcuts to the thing, whatever that is. It doesn't seem to work out. When you're thinking, like you mentioned muscle memory, and I was thinking steroids, right? At the when people do that, there's terrible effects on your body, that sort of thing. Like whenever we try to take shortcuts, it's like nature smacks us around and says, this is not how the world or the universe works. You gotta go through the path in order to do something meaningful.
Exactly. Yeah. You've got to earn it. Right.
I agree. Okay, so we have another segment of our show that we call the lightning round, and this is the most important segment. These questions, these are the hard hitting questions that we're really driving. This is what people tune in for. Honestly, this is where we really get down to the heart of the matter and really get to know the nuts and bolts of the world and the universe. So, are you ready for this?
I am ready. Yeah, hit me.
Cake or pie?
Can I ask a question, or do I have to answer it?
We'll allow it. One question.
Okay, meat pie or like sweet pie?
We've never had someone from England on the show yet, so I did not know. I didn't make
a steak pie, like a steak pie, or like a cheesecake.
We'll go with sweet pie.
Sweet pie.
Mm-hmm.
Cake.
Now, if it was the other way around,
meat pie.
Meat pie. Okay.
Yeah.
There's no such thing as a meat cake.
I mean, there is. I don't know how tasty it would be, but yeah, I'm sure you can. I actually use meat cake as example properties in my test code. Funnily enough, definitely meat pie. I don't know about a meat cake. It's a crime that, like, just a steak pie is so hard to find in the United States because it is incredible. You can get chicken pot pie,
yeah,
but you can't get like a steak and ale pot pie.
Steak and ale? That sounds amazing.
Yeah.
Okay. Have you ever worn socks with sandals?
I'm wearing them right now.
Okay. That's a yes. All right. Do you like the word dapper?
Yes, I do. Well, when I hear dapper, I hear somebody who's dressed really well in a fancy way that's more fancy than traditional, like a business attire, but not super fancy like black tie going to a ball. Dapper means a classier suit than business, not quite, dressed up to go out to a formal occasion. It's in the middle. Dapper covers it perfectly.
I like that. That was a very thoughtful answer, and I enjoyed. You get a bonus point for that one. Definitely,
thank you.
For sure. Okay, what is your favorite carnival food?
Oh my goodness. It's probably like a Polish sausage, to be honest.
Okay.
I'm not a fan of like the funnel cakes or anything fried or the deep fried stuff. No, yeah, Polish sausage.
Polish sausage. That's a good one. Yeah. All right. Do you Instagram your food?
No, I don't use Instagram.
Okay.
And if I did, I don't do the food thing. No, definitely not.
The camera doesn't have to eat first. Like that's what my kids say.
Never. I mean, maybe like 15 years ago, I tried doing it a few times. I realized what am I doing? And then I stopped forever.
Okay. So since you're from England and you have a good grasp of the English language, I can do an imitation. Yeah. Define the word zeitgeist.
The moment is understanding the cultural moment. Zeitgeist is the feel, the vibe of the world as it exists right now, and the zeitgeist changes with every generation and time. So it's capturing the gestalt of culture as it stands.
Man, that's probably like very close to like the textbook definition. That's fantastic.
Great, thank you.
What's your favorite martial art?
Ooh, that's random. Man, I wish I knew more names of martial arts because I'm failing now and I can't think of anything except for Kung Fu, and that's really, really bad. I don't have one, to be honest. I'm just picking one out of the air.
That's a good answer. Kung Fu's a good answer. They're fun movies. The bad overdubs of English,
Yeah.
Happens.
Yeah, I mean, it's Kung Fu. Why not?
Okay, here's a random one. If you could push a button and make everyone in the world 7% happier, but it would also place a worldwide ban on all hair styling products, would you push that button?
Yes.
Yes. Yeah.
Yes, I would.
I feel like that's fair.
Everyone deserves to be happier at the expense of a slightly less fashionable haircut.
I think it's fair. It's a good trade-off. Do you think anyone considers you a hipster?
No, not at all. Nope. Not even close.
All
as
right.
a younger man, maybe 20 years ago, 25 years ago, 100%. Friends used to call me Bohemian, but I'm anything but these days.
Gotcha. All right. Well, that concludes the lightning round. That was fantastic. You scored better than most. Obviously, you got a bonus point, so that helps your score. It was fantastic. The Polish sausage was the number one answer that we were looking for.
Really?
Yeah,
Survey says.
Survey says. Yeah, there you go. Survey says Polish sausage. That's right. I'll be darned. Okay. So, any closing remarks? We're going to sign off here in a few. Any closing remarks from you? Anything?
Closing remarks. Don't get lost in the hype. AI has been buzzing for 2-3 years now. It's going to keep buzzing. There's going to be more and more protocols popping up. MCP, A2A, who knows what's going to come next week. Don't bet the bank on any of this stuff yet because it's rapidly evolving and changing and growing. And I wouldn't bet my business on it just yet. I'd wait for the dust to settle. That would be my parting advice is look, touch, but don't buy yet. That means if you can do that.
Fantastic. And if our folks want to find you, they can go to quobix.com. Is that correct? Quobix?
That's right. quobix.com or pb33f.io. That's Princess Beef. And you can grab, you can take a look at the documentation for the different open source stuff, or you can try out the doctor, or my contact details are on there as well.
Fantastic. All right. Well, thank you very much, Quobix or Dave, whoever's here right now, for joining us today.
Well, thank you. Both of us are here at the moment right now. I really appreciate the opportunity to come and talk today. Thank you for taking the time to listen to me rant and listen to me vent all of my ideas out of my head. Really appreciate it. Thank you.
All right. Well, this was fantastic. If you'd like to get in touch with us, drop us a line at /@calibrity.com. The / podcast is created by Calibrity. Our director is Dylan Courts, producer Ryan Wilson, with editing by John Corey and Jeremy Brown. Marketing support comes from Taylor Blessing. I'm your host, James Carman, and thank you for listening.